You did everything right. You worked harder, earned more, paid off debt, stayed responsible. So why does money still feel tight? Why does one surprise expense still create anxiety? Because the system doesn't reward doing things right. It rewards dependence, and that's why being responsible can still keep you broke. You did everything right. You were taught a simple promise: work hard, be responsible, make smart choices. And one day, money will stop being stressful. Not rich, not luxurious, just safe. So you believed it. Why wouldn't you? Everyone around you repeated the same rulebook. Parents, teachers, bosses, society itself. Effort equals stability. Stability equals peace. You followed the rules carefully. You studied. You showed up. You avoided obvious mistakes. You didn't live recklessly. You delayed gratification. You chose smart instead of fun. You weren't lazy. You weren't careless. You played the game properly. And now, years later, something feels wrong. Your bills are paid. Your life looks stable, but money still feels tight. You hesitate before spending. Unexpected expenses still cause stress. You don't feel free. You don't feel relaxed. You feel one problem away from discomfort. That wasn't supposed to happen. So your mind looks inward. Maybe you budget wrong. Maybe you chose the wrong career. Maybe you're bad with money. Maybe everyone else figured something out that you didn't. But look around. People with decent incomes feel broke. People with houses feel anxious. People who did everything right still feel behind. That's not coincidence. That's a pattern. The promise you were given wasn't complete. In the past, responsibility actually reduced risk. Costs were lower. Commitments were manageable. Stability meant predictability. Today, stability means something else. Every responsible decision adds fixed costs. Every upgrade raises the minimum income you need. Every milestone locks you deeper into obligations. You weren't taught this part. You were taught how to build a life, not how fragile that life becomes when flexibility disappears. So when money still feels stressful, it's not because you failed. It's because the rules quietly changed. Stability no longer removes pressure, it concentrates it. That's why people who look successful feel trapped. They have more to protect, more to maintain, more to lose. Their lives require constant performance just to stay the same. And the relief never comes. Not after the raise, not after the payoff, not after the next achievement. The finish line keeps moving. So you keep pushing. You assume peace is one step ahead, one promotion away, one financial win away. But deep down, something feels off. That feeling isn't weakness, it's awareness. You're realizing that effort doesn't guarantee safety anymore. It guarantees participation in a system that demands more every year. You didn't do anything wrong. You just followed a promise that no longer works. And the moment you see that clearly, everything begins to change. Stability is the new risk. Stability used to mean safety, a steady job, a predictable routine, a life you could plan around. Once you reached it, the stress was supposed to fade. But today, stability behaves differently. Now it comes with weight. Every stable decision adds something permanent, a fixed payment, a long-term commitment, a lifestyle you must constantly support. And the moment you stop performing, the pressure returns immediately. This is the part nobody explains. When your income rises, your expenses don't follow slowly. They lock in. Housing costs increase, insurance grows, subscriptions multiply. Responsibilities stack quietly until your monthly baseline becomes expensive to exist. You're no longer running forward, you're running in place. Stability turns into dependency. You depend on your current income, your employer, your market, your health. One interruption can destabilize everything you've built. That's not safety, that's fragility disguised as comfort. But from the outside, it looks successful. A consistent paycheck feels reassuring. Predictable routines feel mature. Long-term commitments feel responsible. So when anxiety appears, you assume something is wrong with you. It isn't. The system rewards consistency but punishes interruption. And real life is nothing but interruptions. Health changes, jobs disappear, markets shift, costs rise without permission. Yet your fixed commitments remain unmoved, waiting to be paid. This is why people with stable lives feel constant pressure. They've traded flexibility for predictability, and predictability collapses the moment reality breaks pattern. The risk isn't instability anymore. It's being too optimized for one version of life. Stability creates a narrow path. Step off it even slightly and the fall feels immediate. That's why even small surprises cause stress. A repair, a delay, a missed paycheck. They hit harder because there's no room to absorb them. Your life works only if everything continues working. And that's exhausting. So people cling tighter to stability. They double down on more planning, more control, more commitment. But that only increases the pressure. Because safety doesn't come from having everything fixed. It comes from having options. Options mean you can adapt. Options mean you can pause. Options mean you can change direction without collapse. Stability removes options quietly. It feels safe while you're inside it. Dangerous when you try to move. This is the illusion. You weren't failing to feel safe. You are responding correctly to a structure that punishes flexibility. Once you see this, the goal changes. Not more stability, more control, more margin, more freedom to respond. Real financial security isn't about holding your position. It's about surviving movement, and that's a very different game than the one you were taught to win. Why doing everything right still keeps you broke? Most people believe being broke is a result of bad behavior, poor choices, laziness, lack of discipline. So when money feels tight, the instinct is to fix behavior. Spend less, save more, work harder. But what if the problem isn't behavior at all? What if doing everything right is exactly what keeps people stuck? Responsible decisions today often increase future costs. They don't reduce them. Each step forward raises the financial floor you must stand on just to breathe. You upgrade your life responsibly. Better housing, reliable transportation, health coverage, education. Each choice makes sense. Each choice feels smart. But together, they form a system that requires constant income to survive. That's the trap. Your money doesn't disappear because you're careless. It disappears because your obligations are designed to refill immediately. Every dollar earned gets assigned a job before you even touch it. So savings feel impossible. Progress feels invisible. You're not spending on luxuries. You're spending on survival at a higher level. And the higher the level, the more expensive mistakes become. This is why people with higher incomes often feel more pressure than before. Their margin didn't grow. Their responsibility did. They earn more, but they also lose more if something goes wrong. Doing everything right doesn't create freedom. It creates dependence on consistency. And consistency is fragile. The system praises responsibility because responsible people are predictable. Predictable people are easy to extract from. Payments arrive on time. Loans get serviced. Subscriptions renew quietly. Irresponsibility breaks the system. Responsibility feeds it. So you're rewarded with access, not relief. Credit, approval, upgrades, but never margin. That's why effort doesn't feel satisfying anymore. The reward is more obligation, not more control. And when people sense this, they blame themselves. They assume they failed at money. They assume others are smarter. They assume discipline will fix structural pressure. It won't. You can't outdiscipline a structure that scales costs with income. You can only see it clearly. Being broke today doesn't mean you lack money. It means your money lacks flexibility. Cash flow without control is not wealth. It's maintenance. That's why people who do everything right still feel behind. They built a life that requires continuous performance, not one that can pause without pain. The goal was never just earning more. It was earning with margin. But margin isn't encouraged. It's invisible. It doesn't signal status. It doesn't impress anyone. So people chase visible success and unknowingly sacrifice invisible safety. And the moment you realize this, guilt disappears. You stop asking, "What's wrong with me?" You start asking, "What is this system designed to produce?" And suddenly, your experience makes sense. The comfort trap. When stability becomes dangerous. Stability feels like safety. That's what we're taught. A steady job, predictable income, familiar routines, no surprises, no chaos. And for a while it works. But comfort has a hidden cost. And the longer you stay inside it, the harder it becomes to move when you need to. Comfort slowly removes urgency. You stop questioning expenses because they're manageable. You stop testing assumptions because nothing feels broken. You stop building options because the current setup seems good enough. That's the trap. Stability doesn't eliminate risk. It hides it. Risks don't disappear. They accumulate quietly in the background. A job that feels secure today becomes a single point of failure tomorrow. A lifestyle you can afford easily now becomes impossible to adjust later. Fixed costs lock in. Flexibility disappears. Comfort trains you to optimize for continuity, not resilience. So when something shifts, a layoff, illness, market change, family responsibility, the fall is harder because the system was never designed to bend. People think danger comes from instability. In reality, danger comes from rigidity. The more stable your life appears, the more brittle it can become. Comfort encourages specialization. One income source, one location, one plan. It works until it doesn't. And when it breaks, there's no backup muscle to rely on. This is why disruptions hurt responsible people more than reckless ones. Reckless people already live with uncertainty. Responsible people build their lives assuming certainty will last. It won't. The world doesn't reward stability. It rewards adaptability. But adaptability requires slack, time, money, energy, things comfort quietly consumes. Every convenience you lock in removes a choice later. Every fixed payment reduces your ability to respond. Every routine expense narrows your future options. None of this feels dangerous day to day. That's why it works. Comfort numbs awareness. You stop preparing because preparation feels unnecessary. You stop questioning because questioning feels disruptive. Then one unexpected event exposes how little room you actually had, and people mistake that moment for bad luck. It's not luck, it's deferred risk finally arriving. True safety doesn't come from smooth months, it comes from systems that survive bad ones. But comfort trains you to avoid discomfort, even when discomfort is the price of long-term safety. You choose ease over elasticity, predictability over preparedness, and the trade-off is invisible until it's not. That's why people feel betrayed by stability. They did everything right. They avoided risk. They stayed consistent. And yet, one shock unravels years of effort. Because stability without margin is not protection. It's a delay. The goal isn't chaos, it's optionality. Options are what keep you safe when plans fail. And plans always fail eventually. Comfort makes plans feel permanent. Reality doesn't care. Once you see this, stability stops being the finish line. It becomes something to manage carefully, not worship blindly. Because the most dangerous moment financially isn't when things are hard. It's when everything feels comfortable, and you stop building exits. At some point, people stop chasing wealth and start chasing relief. They don't want luxury, they want quiet. They want to stop thinking about money every time life makes a small demand. And yet, even after earning more, saving more, owning more, that relief never arrives. Because safety was never about the amount of money. It was about how exposed your life is to interruption. Most financial advice focuses on accumulation, more income, more assets, more milestones. But accumulation without control doesn't reduce anxiety. It increases responsibility. Each new asset adds maintenance. Each new milestone adds expectation. Each upgrade adds fragility. So people feel richer on paper and poorer in peace. That's the missing conversation. Money feels unsafe when your life cannot pause. When income must continue without interruption. When a few bad months can undo years of effort. That's why people with high net worth still feel pressure. Their lifestyle requires performance. Their wealth is locked, illiquid, or dependent on markets they can't control. Ownership didn't remove risk, it concentrated it. Real safety comes from margin, the ability to absorb shock without panic. Margin means time without income. It means choices without urgency. It means decisions made from clarity instead of fear. But margin is boring. It doesn't show up in photos. It doesn't impress friends. It doesn't signal success. So it's sacrificed quietly in exchange for visible progress. People don't lose money because they're irresponsible. They lose margin because the system rewards appearances over resilience. And the moment margin disappears, anxiety replaces confidence. That's why money never feels safe, not because you don't have enough, but because what you have can't protect you from disruption. Safety isn't owning things outright. It's having multiple ways to respond when life changes. It's flexibility over perfection, liquidity over pride, control over comfort. The biggest illusion is believing one final achievement will unlock peace. Pay off the house, hit the number, reach retirement, then you'll relax. But peace doesn't come from finishing the game. It comes from being able to step away without collapse. That's why people feel uneasy even after winning. They built impressive structures, but fragile ones, and fragility is stressful no matter how successful it looks. Once you understand this, the goal shifts. You stop chasing more and start protecting freedom. You stop asking how to maximize returns and start asking how to minimize dependence. You stop measuring wealth by totals and start measuring it by tolerance. How much life you can handle without fear. That's when money finally changes its role. It stops being something you chase. It becomes something that supports you quietly in the background. Not because you have everything, but because you finally built room for things to go wrong and still be okay. That's real financial safety. And that's why it always felt just out of reach before.